All right, we are back at it again today. I did not actually end up doing any work off camera yesterday like I thought I was going to, so we're gonna have to start up with that today. I realized though after I quit streaming I forgot to add a note about camera inverts. So we're gonna start with that because that's relatively quick and easy to do in this framework. Let's see where we've got settings over here. We'll do new resource, and let's see, then we'll do Boolean setting, and we'll call this invert camera X, or actually I'll just call it invert pitch setting. It'll make it easier for me to find this later. So default value will be off, and we'll say invert pitch, and then we'll just duplicate that, and we'll do invert yaw, and same thing, we'll just change the setting key. All right, and then we'll just grab both of these, drag them on over, and these will do Boolean setting. Well, actually, it doesn't really matter. We'll just do abstract setting, keep it consistent. Okay, so now in here, I need to take the speeds of each of these and say if, where are we at? Invert pitch setting dot get value, then pitch times equals -1, -1. Then if invert yaw, get value. Do the same thing here. These do emit signals whenever they change, but it's easier to just calculate this every frame. I don't think the performance hit is really that noticeable to matter. Not off one if in a multiplication. Okay, there we go. And now we'll just quickly test that those are working. So just run it. You know what, actually, one other thing I'm going to change too while I'm here. I'm going to go into the project settings, and I'm going to add the UI accept options here. UI select is triangle? What? No way. Hold on. What? Did Godot really map select to triangle? No. Okay, I don't know what that's about. All right, UI enter. We'll do X key. Let's make sure that's working. Yeah, okay, there we go. Okay, yeah, so everything seems to be fine. I will say it feels like I'm flying a garbage truck right now, so I really need to work on that. I think part of it will get better with adding some camera, what would you call it, camera lag maybe to simulate the G-forces, but the other thing is just that the movement speed in general is not great. Okay, so let's invert the pitch, make sure I've got this right. So now, yep, that's inverted. Up is now actually up. All right, unset that, and then let's go to invert yaw. This one's gonna be weird. Yeah, that's inverted. All right, cool. Easy. Settings done for that. I don't think I need a sensitivity setting though. Normally you would, but since you don't really directly control the camera, I don't think I actually need a sensitivity adjustment. I guess if I wanted to be extra, I could add a dead zone adjustment for the stick, but I feel like that's not super necessary since it's already a space sim anyways. You don't really need super precise movements, at least not for the way I'm gonna design this. If I was doing the racing challenge from Ratchet and Clank 2, then maybe, but okay, so physics interpolation, I was reading a bit about that before I started because I always get this wrong, and the first thing is you have to actually enable it in the project settings. See if I can find interpolation in here. Where are we at? Jolt physics. Nope. There we go. Physics interpolation on. Cool. All right. Yeah, that's just that one warning. So now the trick is the camera is not supposed to be using the automatic interpolation typically. That, from what I was reading, that can cause some problems if you do that. We'll see. And at least so far, I'm not really seeing anything immediately wrong, but this is running on a much higher frame rate than it's going to be running in web. So one thing I'm going to do is come in here and see if I can change the physics tick rate. We're going to go down to like 10, and we're going to see what happens. See if there's any interpolation problems. I think I can vaguely see some. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I can see some stair stepping on the camera. Whenever I move, the it's hard to explain, and I doubt that this can be seen on the stream, but whenever I stop moving, it snaps, which I think means that there's a lag there, so there might be something wrong with the camera. I'm gonna put a pin in that. We'll say make camera transform global to say manually do interpolation. I guess actually all three of these are about the camera, so now's as good a time as any, I think, to move the camera logic out. So I'm gonna make that a 3D scene. Well, actually, I don't think I want to do a scene. I think I'm going to do a script for this. I don't think the camera realistically needs to be a scene. So we're going to do a new folder here, and we're going to do this called, I don't know, player or ship camera, maybe. Okay, and we'll just create a new script for that. Ship camera. All right. And first things first, we're going to come into here and move over all of these to-dos. Yeah. All right. Perfect. All right. Now, these aren't really setting the camera directly, so I actually don't think I need to move any of this code, but I will move the camera FOV code. And I highly recommend doing this, by the way. If you're doing a jam and you're tempted to just throw everything into one massive script, I'd highly recommend against it, because you'll find as you go on that it gets harder and harder to figure out where the fixes need to be made for things. You'll end up with a lot of stuff that's half implemented. I get it. It's tough to take someone's word for that, but I've learned from doing, I don't know, what was it, like 5 jams last year and like 3 this year already. You really do want to embrace clean code even in a jam, because it just goes bad so fast if you don't. Okay, so I'll leave the inverts here, although I think I'm actually going to move these into the player input script, but for now let's just get rid of the camera, and I'm going to add a player camera or ship camera. The only reason I called it that is I might want a camera for the main menus, and I may give it a different purpose. Okay, we'll say that needs to be a node 3D, not a node. There we go. Okay, perfect. Clear out these errors, they don't really matter. Okay, so we've got that. Now let's go ahead and open the player input. Let me also rename this folder to player input. Actually, I'm gonna I changed my mind. What did I say yesterday? Naming's the hardest thing. I'm gonna call this player camera instead of ship camera because it's really just gonna confuse me otherwise. Okay, and then player camera, and just come over here. Neat trick in Godot: if you rename something and you want it to update to the new name, just go in and delete the text. Oh, well, that didn't work. Well, normally that works. I think that's only with scenes, maybe. But normally you can just delete the text or delete the entire name and press enter, and it'll just go back to whatever the default should be. So if you have a scene and you change the name of the root node, that's a good way to update it. Okay, so we got that. Let me pop open the player input and player, and we're just going to move the control or the inverts over into here. And we'll take that and cut it. Okay, so now I'll just chuck that in here. So and we will do var direction multiplier float equals, we'll say -1 if get value. How about we'll just do 1.0 and we'll just do an if statement. I don't like my lines to go on for that long. Also, this is yaw. I don't know what I'm doing. Okay. I'm gonna move the pitch one out. Just chuck that down here. All right, direction multiplier. Yep. Okay, and then yep. So this is the pitch setting. Perfect. And player is apparently broken. What? Failed to compile scripts. I think that might be a red herring. I don't know. Oh, it was camera was broken. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that would make sense because there is no camera. Can't just use an on ready here. So we'll do new camera 3D.new. Just call that camera. There's no reason to have the 3D on it. Okay, so then in here we'll do add child camera. I'm gonna make this internal. Okay, so then the other thing I want to do is I'm gonna want some camera shake. So I'll probably add the camera under another node later, but for now this should be fine. And what I'll probably do is just expose an intensity value that can be set. There's a specific way there's a lot if you read about camera shake. I think it's some GDC talks on it. The conventional thought is to just tilt the camera, like rotate it. But there are some issues with that. Where if you just rotate the camera, it can cause people to become motion sick, apparently. I will asterisk this, I might have it backwards. I need to go double check this before I implement it. But my understanding is that it's either rotating the camera or translating the camera. One of those two, and I want to say it's rotation, causes motion sickness a lot more often. The trick is that offsetting the camera just by like moving it left and right, up and down, back and forth, that has the problem that your camera's near clipping plane can move outside of your bounding box. And if that happens, then the corner of the screen might get cut off. It might phase into something. Either way, the conventional way that you do camera shake is that you have like an intensity value and you just add to the intensity, and then it will slowly decrease over time. So if you want to keep the camera shaking, you just refill the intensity every frame. And the way it kind of works is the intensity tapers off as it decreases. So it's not like you're setting a timer for how long it'll shake. You're making it shake a lot, and it'll slowly stop shaking. And if you want to keep it shaking, you just keep shaking it a lot, or you just keep telling it maximum intensity. And there's a specific equation for that. I need to go look it up. I've used it in an example project a long time ago. I need to go look back at how that works, because there was a whole blog post, I think, on it. But like I said, we're not going to worry about that too much right now. What I am going to look at is some of this. Oh, okay, that was the errors I just caused. Okay, so let's rerun this, see if everything's working. Yep, okay, controls are normal. Let's just double check the inverts. I'm just going to invert both of them right quick, just to make sure that everything is fine. Yep, okay, everything is inverting, so we're good. Well, actually, let me just double check one of them real quick. So we'll uncheck yaw and make sure that pitch, so I haven't flip-flopped these. Yeah, okay, they're not flip-flopped. Perfect. Okay, so there we go. We have a good basis set up. So I can remove that note. The transform and interpolation will deal with that, and camera shake we'll also do later. So I'm going to just quickly make a note in my to-do list here. I guess I can do this from Godot, actually. It's just in the readme. So we'll come down here and let's see, where do I have juice? And I'm going to add something into the... Where's my bug fix in this one? Oh, there it is. I'm going to add a note there about camera interpolation, since that's technically a bug that it's not implemented yet. Okay. So Bootstrapper is done. Mode switching is done. Saving and loading player data I still need to do, but we'll worry about that later. I think I'm actually going to call it... Well, I'm not going to call the camera controller done yet, but... Alright, so on the player, we've got some basic movement. Let's see. I need an ability... going back to the README, actually. So the player's abilities are blasters, bombs, a boost, and possibly a dodge. But I don't think I'm going to... In fact, actually, I think I'm going to just cut the dodge. Because I think that's going to be weird in 3D, or in first person. I feel like that makes more sense for a third person game. So I need a boost option. That should be relatively straightforward. And I also need to make the actual player movement feel a little more natural. So let's see what we can do here. First things first is that the turning feels weird. It's hard to explain, but it feels really, really rigid and just not good at all. I think I also need a boost. So let me add in another export for boost speed. I don't know, you can just call it 20.0 for now. And I'm actually tempted to make a class that stores all of the movement parameters and just swap it with the boost ones, but I think for now we're just going to do floats, or individual variables. So we'll say boost yaw speed float equals that, and we'll do that, and then we'll do the same thing for boost pitch speed. Okay, so I know I want these to be slower, but I think I'm actually going to leave the boost at the 45, and I'm going to make the others like, we'll do like 60. We'll see how that feels. Okay, so now I need a boost button. So we'll go into the input map and we will just do boost. And This one's interesting because I'm not really sure what keys I'm going to use yet. I think probably just use shift on the keyboard, and on the controller I think I'm going to use the trigger, and then I think I'm going to also use the other well, no, actually on the controller I'm going to use X to boost. I think that makes more sense. That way I can reserve the triggers for shooting. Okay, so on player input, I need a thing to get whether or not we're boosting. I could do a signal, which I think is what I'd rather do here. If you just do a Boolean value, the way I want the boost to work is that the boost will recharge. So the problem is if you just do a Boolean, it's gonna, what I don't want to have happen is for if you hold boost down and then the boost starts to recharge, that it immediately boosts again. That would be really unintuitive and kind of annoying. There are some things you could do where you could force a mandatory cooldown period, which I might do, but I think the easier way to do this is to have a signal for, well, no, signal may be problematic because then I need like boost up and boost down. Yeah, I was gonna say a signal might be easier to implement, but it also might be more of a pain. I think about that in a minute. So the benefit of doing a signal is that you're not polling every frame to figure out if you're boosting or not. You just switch into the boost state whenever the signal is received. Yeah, and you know, yeah, I convinced myself I want to do a signal for this. So we'll say boost started, and we'll do another one, boost ended, or you know what, we'll do boost pressed and then boost released. That's how we'll do that. And then we'll do unhandled input if event dot is action. Returns true if the given action is being pressed and is not an echo. Yeah, I don't know if that's the right call here. I think I want just pressed. Is that not an option? Okay, let me have a look at this. What options do we have here? Is action pressed? Is action released? I returned false. Okay, I think that's fine. We'll find out. So we'll do boost pressed dot emit elif. Actually, I can do this easier. If event dot is action boost dot is pressed. There we go. Elif event dot is, I'm assuming pressed and released are mutually exclusive in that there's not a third, but just for safety, I'll do that in an elif in case I'm wrong. Game jams are not the time to be making assumptions. Okay, so that should work. Okay, so what we'll do over here in player is we'll have variables for speed, float, and we'll set that to default speed. Then we'll have var pitch speed. float equals default pitch speed. And then we'll do another one for yaw speed. Okay. And then in here, we'll use the variables instead. There we go. So that's decoupled. And we will do in ready. We'll grab a, well, I guess we already have a reference to player input. So we'll do boost press.connect on, we'll say start boost actually. I've been getting out of the habit of doing, you know, on this, on that, for my signal handlers and just calling the method directly. I used to basically create a dedicated like on boost pressed, on boost released, on mouse pressed, on mouse released, and it was creating a lot of boilerplate, and I've gotten out of the habit of doing that. So now I just do usually call the method directly unless I need to call multiple methods, and then I'll make a handler. Okay, and of course it's mad because these don't exist yet, so we'll do that. And I might do a state machine for this. We'll see. Honestly, at the moment, I just kind of wanted to get the controls feeling decent. Okay, so we will do speed equals boost speed. Pitch speed equals boost pitch speed. Yaw speed equals boost yaw speed. And then we'll just copy these so I don't make any mistakes down here. Yeah, I'm thinking a state machine would probably be the better option here, but because I can kind of foresee there being a damage state as well that slows you down, because that would be useful if you hit something. It maybe like boosts your turning. I'm also potentially thinking that I mean, your speed realistically also needs to lerp. That's actually a good point. Your speed should be lerped probably. That's a good point. I could lerp the velocity. I think that would just lag the thing though if I did that. I might need to add like a target speed and target pitch speed and that in here. But at least at the moment, let's see if this works. Hopefully I connected everything. Yeah, that definitely worked. Oh yeah. Oh, what the heck? Why can I turn faster left than I can right? Oh, maybe I can't. Okay. The turning still doesn't feel great otherwise, so let me boost this to like 90. Whoa, okay. Yeah, that's a lot faster. Okay, so it doesn't necessarily feel like you're moving faster, and that's because I'm not doing any tricks to make it feel like that. So this would be a time where I would want to shake the camera while you're boosting. And of course, like I said yesterday, having an option to disable or reduce camera shake in the settings for accessibility. But okay, this is definitely feeling a little bit better now. I'll be honest, it feels better boosting than not. I think the default speed is just way too slow. Let me bump that to like 20 and then maybe boost this to like 30. Okay, that's all right. That's feeling good. Yeah, all right. But yeah, I definitely need to lerp it. There's a... Ooh, I hit gimbal lock there. That's interesting. I need to find a way to prevent that because it's interesting. I've never seen that happen before. I'm just hitting the top and bouncing. What on earth? I've never seen that happen. I think that's gimbal lock, but I'm not a little confused by that one. I've never seen it do that before specifically. I think what might be happening is that actually let me test with the keyboard. I was using the controller there. Yeah, okay, so with the keyboard it works. It's with the controller it doesn't. And I bet the reason why, if I tap, yeah, so if you tap left or right, if you're not perfectly... Oh, what the heck? It inverted my controls there. Okay. Yeah. Clearly some problems with gimbal lock. Okay. Let me add a note about that. Okay, so I'm not 100% certain how to fix that here other than switching to quaternions. And even then, I'm not 100% certain if that'll fix this problem. But that's definitely something I need to figure out. Okay. All right, let's work on just the boosting and make that feel a little... Make that transition feel better first. I probably need to read up on how to avoid that gimbal lock issue. All right, so there's a couple options. One thing I can do is do var target velocity, and we'll just do this. I don't think this is going to have the desired effect, but we'll do velocity dot lerp to target velocity. Now, this is something that gets done wrong a lot in games. If you just put delta in here, that is not correct. This will not be correctly integrated into the frame rate. It's a lot more complicated than that. And honestly, there's a whole blog post on it online. Frame rate independent lerp is what you need to look up. But Proto Jam, because this is so common, has a time utils class, and it has frame rate aware lerp weight, where basically you give it an acceleration value and then you give it delta, and it generates a weight that is suitable for use with lerp or slurp. Well, I think specifically lerp, but I've used it with slurp as well. So I'm just going to put a value in there for the moment. We'll just see how this goes. I might do like 2. Basically, the higher the number, the faster it accelerates. So let's see. All right, well, it's a less jarring transition, but I feel like the transition is too fast. Okay. Let me go down to 1. I'm a little confused actually, because if you're not pressing anything, these should go to 0, but it feels like when you release, it instantly resets, which is not what I expected. Yeah, there's some... That doesn't feel right. Something's not quite right. Yeah, I think this just doesn't work the way I'd like it to. I think these need to be target values, not actual values. So let's just copy that. And we're going to just add in here target. Okay. So then target speed, target pitch speed, and then target yaw speed. Okay, And then we're going to do 3 lerps in here. Should be fine. We're going to put that up here. And we're going to just directly set velocity. Okay, so in here, we're going to do speed equals lerp f from speed to target speed, and we'll use the weight, and then we'll just copy that and do the same thing. So pitch speed, yaw speed, and target pitch speed, target yaw speed. Make sure there's no copy paste issues here. Speed, pitch speed, target, yaw speed, target, yaw. Yep, okay. Should be good. Okay, yep. So we'll see if that works. And that's a relatively low acceleration value, so okay. I'm going to be honest, it's hard to tell if it's even working right now. Okay, it is, but the lerp is just so slow that it's hard to tell. Okay. Couple things then. Whenever I start boosting, I think I want the speed to immediately take effect. But I want it to slow down. So we will try just directly setting the boost speed whenever it starts. And then I think these weights need to be different. So we're going to say pitch weight, yaw weight, and we'll do another one for speed weight. Because they're moving too slow now. Okay, so on speed we'll do that, and we'll do like 2 on them. The difference between a 3 and a 2 is massive. It's a huge difference with this. Okay, so all right, so we're slowing down. Okay, yeah, I can see that immediate boost now. Although I think it's still slowing down too slowly. Yeah, the controls, the problem right now is that they're not changing fast enough, which makes it feel really weird. It feels like the controls are lagging behind. Yeah, player movement. Decided I was going to do a first-person space combat game, so dealing with all the fun of gimbal lock and camera interpolation and trying to get the player to actually feel like I'm not flying a garbage truck right now. Playing around with some interpolation on the or some lerping of the speeds, because I intend to have a player boost ability. So I'm trying to see if I can get the boost to feel right. Not quite there at the moment though. So for the most part, yeah, the problem I'm running into at the moment is that if I lerp the speed between boost and default, and same thing with the turn rate, it's not easy to tell that it's actually changed. Where the land? How player knows where is the land? Do you mean like landing on a planet or something? Or do you mean like in general with the character body? Because at least in my game, I'm not gonna land on the planets. There's just like a collider that bounces you off of things. But yeah, if you can elaborate, I can probably help answer that for you. I think I'm gonna tweak this a little bit. I think, let me make like 6 on the lerp for the speed. And I think I'm also going to do the same trick here where I just directly set the pitch speed and the yaw speed directly. Okay, so we'll just directly set those to the boost, the pitch, and we'll do that for boost for the yaw as well. All right, let's see if that makes a difference. Okay, well, that's maybe looking a little bit better. I can actually see that I'm boosting now. All right, it gets slower whenever I... All right, yeah, all right. So the turning gets slower whenever I'm boosting. It doesn't feel like it's lagging behind now. And it feels like the controls more or less go back to normal. Yeah, okay, I think this might be the right approach. It was just I needed to set it immediately. All right, well, I should probably pull these weights out into exports then. I swear every player controller I end up doing for a jam has like 100 exports for all the random variables. Yeah, so the way I've got it set up right now is that if you press shift... Oh, that's weird. Oh, I broke the script, that's right. Yeah, so if you press and hold shift, then you go into a boost speed. Or if you hold X or whatever the bottom button on an Xbox controller is, I forget. Or A. Yeah, if you hold X or A on a controller. And then the idea is going to be that there's a cooldown. So the general idea for the game is that it's a first-person space flight where you're trying to capture a shooting star. There's basically bounties out on the stars, and you're trying to capture them for resources. But there are other bounty hunters there as well. So you have to shoot them down before you can capture the star. And then between missions, I'm going like Armored Core style, where it's a mission structure. And between missions, you can choose what equipment to put into your ship. And it's going to have like a Resident Evil style inventory with like physical grid. And certain equipment takes up certain blocks in that grid. So you can do things like bring more ammunition or bring more bombs or yeah, stuff like that. Oh, the intro panel? You mean like the main menu screen here? So this is a new thing I started doing. I can show you how this works. So I'm using a add-on for Godot that I wrote called Proto Jam. I checked with the jam organizers ahead of time. They said it should be fine since they allow project templates, and this is effectively a project template. But the way I've got it set up is my main script, which is the main scene for Godot. I have it... No, actually, I guess the main script doesn't matter. That's just some setup. I have this application scene. And what this does is it has a bunch of swap to functions in it that swap between the different modes, like main menu, mission select, game, results, credits, whatever. This is how I structure most of my jams. And in these, I have this node called a node swapper. And all this thing does is it changes whatever its child is. So when you tell it transition to scene, it will instantiate that scene, that path, and then it will put up a transition over the screen, delete its old children, instantiate the new scene, add them as children, and then remove the transition. So it's basically just a fancy way of adding and removing children of this node swapper. In fact, you can, if I get the game running and then I go back into Godot and I go into the remote scene tree, you can see main, application, node swapper, and then you can see the main menu down there. And then if I hit new game, you can actually see it suddenly swap. So now we have a thing that was programmatically created under it instead. And the transition is just a canvas layer. It's just a canvas layer with a color rect on it. And I can actually show that too. That's part of this. So this is something called a luminance mask transition, where basically you have a gradient image and the darkest part of the image will become transparent before the lightest part. So you can do really cool stuff. Like I can drag this over here, and now whenever I run the game, you can see it expands from the corner instead. And all it's doing is it's just a really simple shader that says, here is a cutoff, and any pixel that's darker than the cutoff value becomes transparent. Any pixel that's lighter is solid. So yeah, you can do a lot of really quick and simple effects like that. And that's part of Proto Jam, this really simple transition system. Yeah, normally, so what happened is actually the last Wild Jam, Godot Wild Jam 92, I spent like the first 3 days of the jam building the system out. And it ended up hurting me in the end, but I took the code from that and built a library from it. So now this time I get the benefits of that, and I don't have to fight spending days just getting menuing and stuff like that working. Yeah, so back to the player script here. We will do a speed acceleration. It seems redundant, but make that 6.0. And we'll copy that in down here. And then we'll do the same thing for yaw and pitch. I don't know that I'm actually going to need separate accelerations or speeds for yaw and pitch. For the moment, I've got them locked together, but I found in first-person games especially, you usually do end up needing separate, but that's for first-person shooters where turning and aiming are going on, and I'm not sure if that's going to apply to a spaceflight game, so I'm keeping them separate for now, but they might actually just stay the same in the final game. Okay, so we got that. So that updates the internal speeds. I still need to fix the gimbal lock issue. Yeah, so I think, let's see what happens with that. Yeah, there's the gimbal lock. Oh, okay, that's weird. I really don't understand the gimbal lock issue here. I've never had it invert the controls like that before. So I need to do a quaternion or something, I think, to fix that. And I really don't want to get into that right now. I'm tempted to just lock the maximum angle that the player can look and not allow them to do loop-de-loops. But I feel like that would be really unintuitive for a space shooter. Okay, so we've got that. We've got boosting. It feels relatively okay. At least it's configurable enough. So at the moment, I only have pitch and yaw. I was debating adding roll, and it's not actually using mouse movement. So right now, I'm just using left stick for just turn left to right, look up and down. Now it's using WASD, turn left to right, look up and down. I was thinking about adding a roll as well, but I don't know if I'm going to bother to do that. I'm partly because I'm not really sure how I want to handle it with the mouse, because I can't actually think of many space shooters I've played that use the mouse. Every time I've played one, I've always used a controller. So I'm not actually certain what would be intuitive with a mouse when it comes to roll. I was seriously debating just mapping roll to like Q and E or the arrow keys or something and not using the mouse at all. But I don't really like doing that because you're still going to need the mouse for the menus. And I don't personally like making players lift their hand back and forth. So it's kind of still in the air if I'm going to do more angles. And then for the moment, code-wise, I'm just doing a really simple, just adding to the rotation based on whether or not you're holding the key. I think I need to implement the boost timer so that the boost actually drops, but that's going to require adding a user interface for that. So I think I'm going to go ahead and just start that now, since I'm going to need it anyways. We'll put that on a canvas layer, and we'll call this okay, game overlay. And we'll add a margin container for the main scene. We'll set that to full rect. And let's see, we'll add, oh wait, no, I said I wasn't going to do a HUD. That's right. I said I was going to do this all in 3D. Okay, well in that case, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add it for now as a child of here. I'll need to integrate that into a model or something later. We'll just make it a HUD for now, but part of the player. Okay, so now I'm going to need a progress bar. Okay, and we'll call that boost bar. Make that unique. We'll set the max value to 1. And we'll set, what's initial value? Yeah, set to 0. Okay, whatever, that's fine. And yeah, that should be fine. Okay, so then we'll come in here into the script. And I'm probably going to make this a component, I think. The player controller is already starting to get a little long with movement code, and I kind of want to keep it mostly to movement code. But for now, we'll just hack it in here and I'll move it later. So we'll say boost time, or we'll do, now we'll just do this as a variable, I think, for now. So we'll do var boost amount, maybe, or boost ratio, I don't know. And we'll set that to 1, and then we want to slowly drain it and then refill it back to 1. So while it's down, yeah, I definitely need a state machine for this. Yeah, you know what, now's as any time as ever. Do state machine. And then I'm actually going to need to write a state for that. So we will come in over here into that. We'll make a new folder called player states, and we'll put a script in there, and we will call it default state, I assume. Player default state. And what I'm going to do is just have the states edit like a global movement parameter object. Okay, so we'll do in here, oh, that needs to extend abstract state. Okay, and let me see, we'll add that as a child. Where is that at? Player default state, there we go. Okay, so how am I going to do that? I'm going to need an object that stores the movement parameters, but it needs to store, oh, I already saw with this one. So the state, whenever you start it, it directly sets the speed. So I can't just set it like that. I can't just return the target. So I need to set all of these. But I think I'm going to leave the target and the lerp code in there. Oh, okay. That's going to be fun to implement. All right, so we will do another class here, I think. Just throwing stuff wherever. So we'll call this player movement parameters. Yeah, I guess extends, and we'll do a ref counted so I don't cause a memory leak. And then in here we will put all of these values. And we'll just make them public, and we'll just default them all to 0 just for the heck of it. All right. That should be relatively easy. And then what I'll do is I'll pass this into the states so that they can edit it. And then I'll also pass it back into the movement controller so that it can edit it. Okay, so that should be fine. Okay. This is going to get a lot more broken before it gets better. So I'm going to delete that actually. And I'm also going to delete the state machine because I'm going to just add it dynamically. Yeah, so what I'm trying to do is with the boosting and not boosting, I need a state machine to control whenever you can enter the boost state. Because the way I intend to do it is that once you exhaust all of the boost, you have to wait for it to refill a certain amount before it'll let you boost again. So I want to have some logic that blocks you from getting back into that state. So all of these movement parameters like speed, pitch speed, yaw speed, and then the target speeds, I'm going to have at least 2 states, one for default and one for boost. and the state is going to set these parameters, and then the player controller is going to read them, and then that way the state machine can control whether or not you're allowed to enter into the state, and the player movement code doesn't need to know anything about the states. It just reads this movement parameters object and does whatever it says. So I'm just trying to decouple the selection of the boost mode from the actual movement code. So let's see, we're going to do a var state machine. We'll do node state machine equals node state machine dot new. We'll do var, now we'll need to add that, add child state machine, and we'll set that to internal. And then the other thing I need to do is set the state machine update mode equals to node state machine dot update mode dot physics. Okay, so now we've got the state machine, so now I need to add the states. So we will do a var default state equals player default state, player default state dot new. And then in this default state, I'm going to need a reference to movement parameters, which I think I am just going to bring out into their own class, because otherwise that's going to be annoying. So we're going to do a new folder over here called player movement parameters, and we will just do a new script, also call it player movement parameters, parameters, there we go. And we'll just do that. All right, and we'll have that extend ref counted. Okay, cool. So now we've got that. So now over here, I can do export movement parameters. Oh, it would help if I actually added the var keyword. Oh, what did I typo? Built in. Yep. Okay. What did I do? Player movement. Oh, that's not misspelled there. Okay. What did I do? Export var movement parameters. Export type can only be duh. Yeah. Okay. Whatever. I will just do this as a resource then. It doesn't really matter. Functionally for this, it's not going to make a difference whether it's a resource or a ref counted. And now this is going to be mad about that. Yeah. Okay. There we go. I'm just going to quickly rename that to match the class name. Cool. All right. So now in here, abstract nodes have an enter, exit, and execute. So on enter, I'm going to change the movement parameters, so I can adjust all of these. And I'm just going to copy that from the player controller. Well, I guess I'll copy it from here. And let's see. Yep. So we'll do that. And we'll just delete all of this stuff from the beginning, and I'll just paste in the parameters. And get rid of all of that. And then I will grab the export variables here, and we'll move those over as well. So let me grab all the defaults. Okay, and I should be pretty much done if I do that. All right, perfect. So now whenever it, oh yeah, right, player, that's going to be broken now. So now I need in here a movement parameters object. player movement parameters equals player movement parameters dot new. And now whenever I construct the object, I need to do default state dot movement parameters equals that. Okay, so now all of these I'm going to remove, and I'm going to read them from that. And actually, I'm actually going to change that class name. Instead of movement parameters, I'm going to call this movement state, and it's actually going to update it as it goes. Since I'm going to actually run the tweens on this object, or the lerps on the object itself. Okay, so then back here on player, we'll just rename that. I'll need to do it in the state as well. Movement state. Okay, so now over here, I can do that. Rename that. I'll get to that in a second. Okay, so now dot speed. I should probably actually move this code into that state, but we'll just leave it for now. Okay, so now I'll move that out in a minute. But first things first, I need to do state machine dot add child, and we'll add the default state under it, and we'll also set this as internal. And then we will do state machine dot change state, and we will just tell it to change to the default state. Okay, then all of this I'm just going to comment out, and then I'm going to go back into the default state and fix that because that has been renamed. Awesome. All right. All right, we'll get some parse errors in here. Yeah, okay, those don't exist anymore, so we'll comment those out. Clear that. All right, I think that should be good. Okay, so there we go. So now the movement. Oh, actually, the movement feels really weird. Oh yeah, I think I broke something in doing that. Uh-oh. That is hard to explain. That it feels too quick. Like it's running way faster than it should be. That is, what do we have here? Oh no. Huh. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's just warnings about unused stuff. Okay, that's a little strange. I wasn't expecting that to happen. All right. Well. I'm going to keep going with this because I need the state machine anyways, but I might need to circle back to why that feels weird. Yeah, it definitely feels way too fast. It felt slower before, so I think I broke something somewhere. I don't know exactly what I did, but I broke something. I'll come back and fix that. For now, let me just get in the logic to switch to the boost state so I can get back to where I was logic-wise. So we'll come down here, we'll make a new state, and we will call this, or actually I'll just duplicate this one. So we'll call this boost state. Okay, and then in here, actually just gonna rename these anyways. Okay, and I'm gonna do that in here as well. It doesn't make sense to have a default when there is no other value. Okay, so we'll do default. Oh, I think well, I might know what I did wrong, but I think it's because well, no, that wouldn't cause it. Okay, what did I do? It hides a global. That's hides a global. There's no way there's a global class called that. Oh, it's because I have this one's the same name. Some of the error messages in Godot sometimes are not very helpful. Stuff like that is really unintuitive, that it calls a user script a global class just because you export class name. I get technically that it is a global class, but it's very unintuitive when you see the error message. Okay, yes. Yeah, I don't like to use AI with my game dev stuff. The main thing for me is that I like to learn how to do it myself. Even if it's a rougher experience and I'm not able to get as much done, because it helps me get a better technical understanding of how the engine works and how it behaves. So like I've dug through some of Godot's C++ code and things like that. So I like to avoid using AI for anything. There's also, for me, I kind of make a distinction with games. I don't really see them as software, even though they are. I see them as art, and I don't like to use AI with art. I don't necessarily care if other people want to use AI to help them. Like if it helps you get into making games, then, I think more power to you, as long as you're not, one of the people that pushes AI slop on the App Store or the Nintendo Switch eShop. But for me personally, I like, for instance, for the longest time, I did all my coding in Notepad. Like I didn't use an IDE, and I got really good at it. I had huge parts of APIs I used memorized, didn't need to Google anything, just because I forced myself not to have the IDE help me. And I could use an IDE if I wanted to, but I could get a lot done without one. Although part of that was out of necessity, because I was using C++ for a while, and they broke, well, I think they said they broke it. I think it was deliberate, but IntelliSense in Visual Studio 2010 did not work. So you had no help at all, which was really, really rough at the time. I don't know anyone who likes VS 2010 because of that. It just broke. Like you had no hints at all. It sucked. I haven't touched C++ in a long time though. The last time I used it was C++ 11, and they're up into the 20s now. And last I heard, it's almost a completely different language than how it used to work. Okay, so let's see. We've got the boost state. Okay, so this is correct. When you enter boost, I do want it to directly set the speeds. I do need to come back here and grab these though, and move those into here. So I want that to be 30 and these to be 45, so that it feels a little heavier whenever you're in the boost mode. The problem I'm seeing with this is that I don't want, when you enter the default state, for these to immediately change. I think what I'm going to do with these is not set those directly. I think that's part of my problem. Okay, so now it should still build because I'm not actually creating a new instance of anything. Yeah, it still feels too fast though. Part of it is I also haven't figured out the scale for the game, but I do agree that's too fast, because this first node is like 30 meters out. So you're closing that gap in like 2 seconds. That's way too fast. But okay, so now I need to come in here and I'm going to get rid of that. And I'm going to need to add another state for boosting. So we'll do var boost state. There, boost state. All right, and then we'll do boost state dot movement state equals that. So this gives all of the states access to this thing to manipulate. Okay, so now that's in there, but it's not the default, so it won't just activate on its own. And then the other thing I'm going to do is give the state machines access to the player input so they can detect whenever it's been pressed. So that should be relatively Oh, hold on a second. My room is being invaded by a vacuum cleaner. What problem was that? I have to fend off a robotic vacuum before it takes the stream audio with it. Okay, there we go. Never buy a Nito. They're so glitchy and broken. Okay, so where was I? Oh yeah, player input. So this is why I like to do player input as a separate node, because you can pass it around to other things that might need it. So here I'm going to go into the default state and I'm going to add an export, and we're going to do the player input. And then what I will do is whenever it enters, or no, ready, I'll do player input dot boost press dot connect on boost pressed. Actually, well, that might actually be a problem. I don't want to put that in ready. The way the state machine works is it doesn't remove the nodes from the scene tree when they're not running. It just doesn't call their execute function anymore. So I think I actually want to do that in the enter. And then that means I'll need to clean it up in the exit function. Or not exit tree. Just exit. Oh. Oh wait, no. Hold on a minute. What have I... Oh! Oh, that... Yeah, okay, that's wrong. I wasn't even calling the right function of the state machine. That would explain it. Yeah, okay. Hold on, we'll go fix that in the boost state. That... I was calling Godot's enter tree, not the state's enter. Oops. Okay, so now, whenever I enter, we will do boost. Okay, so this will check. Yeah, okay, so we will do... Yeah, on boost pressed. The way the state machine works is you queue up state transitions, so it should be fine to call this from outside of its enter or execute or whatever, because the player input is just going to get emitted from the unhandled input function, which isn't part of process or physics process or whatever. But it should be fine because the state machine itself will not change states until idle time. So that should be fine. Okay, so, or not idle time, till the physics tick. So we'll do that, and or actually, I can't, because you need a reference to state machine to change states. So I actually need to put this in execute. So what I'm actually going to do then is I'm going to make a variable and call it boosting. Okay, so if boosting, and we'll just set boosting equal to true whenever that's pressed. Okay, so then over here, if boosting, then we will do state machine dot change state, and we're going to need a reference to the state we want to change to. Some state machines, people will write them to where it will actually create a new instance of the state. I personally don't like to do that because that means that you're constantly allocating and deallocating memory. I like to keep the states active, and then I'll just take a reference to them as an export variable. And that also makes your states a little more reusable. So if you want to change what state you go to for debugging or something, you can just change it in the export variable and not need to actually edit the code of your class. So we'll call this boost state, and we'll take just as an abstract one. We'll do that. And that, I think, is really all I need to have in there. But I do need a released as well. And we'll do on boost release. Okay. And do the same thing. Realizing though that this is functionally the same as if I had just used a variable for this instead of signals, but whatever. I might go back and change that later. Okay, yeah, and I don't need delta. Don't need that either. Okay, so, all right. I think I'm also going to change how I'm doing this because this is starting to get a little complicated to do this through code. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add the state machine directly because I'm getting so many export variables that this is going to be a pain to constantly edit this. So we're going to do the player default state and then the player boost state. We'll just do this directly. And then that way I can assign player input like that, and I can assign the boost state like that. There we go. That's a lot nicer. And then what I will do is take a reference to the default state and the boost state, and then I will just grab these as on ready variables. And the vacuum's back. 1 second. Hopefully that helped. Okay, so we've got these. So now in here, I will just do that. We'll do state machine, change state to the default state. All right, that should be back to where I need it to be. Oh wait, the movement state, I do need to pass that in. It is a ref counted object, but I don't have a, well, okay, we're going to change this again. We're going to change this back to a ref counted instead of a resource. And we're going to edit these states so that it's not an export variable. It's going to be something else. We're going to do like, just a non-export variable, I suppose, actually. And that's just something that has to get set through code. I'm trying to remember what I did for... I did a similar thing with the last Wild Jam, and I can't remember how I did this. I had a more elegant way, I think, of passing movement state around without it being export variable or not export variable or whatever. I think this is... Oh, you know what? Actually, I think with Wild Jam 92 I did construct the state machine in code, so I don't think it was a problem. Oh well. Okay, well then I'm gonna need a reference to this state as well. This is a little more messy than I would have liked it to be, but you can't make a non-resource an export variable, so to accommodate that I need to set it directly through code, which is fine, but not ideal. It just means that I have to come in here and grab a reference to it and manually set it. Okay, so in here we'll do that. Movement state equals movement state. And then boost state dot movement state equals that. Okay, so now everything should be wired up. All right, so looks like boost state is wired up, default state is wired up, but I need to go ahead and implement. Well, actually, I think the funny thing about this is I think it's going to boost as long as I press the button. Yeah, now it's just permanently boosting. Uh-oh. All right, so now I need to make it so that the boosting stays on. Yeah, and the signal is definitely a mistake, so we're going to ditch the signal and we're just going to check this manually. And we're just going to say func boosting, or is boosting, turn input.get what? I thought there was a function for getting if it's pressed. Yeah, is action pressed. Okay, input dot is action pressed. Boost. There we go. I was gonna say, I thought there was something for that. Okay, so now over here, we're just not going to deal with this anymore. We'll just do player input dot is boosting. Cool. And then I can add a boost component, which will actually slowly drain over time and refill. And I can just add a check in here to say that you can't boost unless it is currently allowing boosting. And then I can do the same thing over in here. We'll just copy those and we'll go over to the boost state. And we'll call this default state. And then do something similar and execute. Say if is not boosting, change to the default state. Perfect. Okay, so now oh, that broke. Is boosting on, oh yeah, it would help if I actually assigned variables or assigned my exports. So player input, assign that, and default state will assign that. Okay, I can tell the turning got slower. Okay, so we got the fast turning again. Now it's back to the slow turning. Okay, I can definitely tell that I need to fix the physics interpolation. It's easier to tell with stuff that's further away that it's glitching around. Okay, so we're starting to get there. I still think there's some stuff that's not exactly right, but the boost state is working at least. And the default state is working. Okay. So then, that's fine. So actually, I have a good idea for this. I am just going to make this a separate node. That's what I'm going to do. And then we'll just add that as a child. There we go. And then in here, I'll do all the calculations to update its speeds internally. Okay, and then okay, yeah, that's a better way of doing this. Just bring it out into its own node. Okay, so then I need to bring this out. Perfect. All right, so now that's there. And then all of these can just export that again. All right, awesome. So now I can assign movement state in both of these, and then they have an access to it. And then I can make that unique so that the player can grab it. And that means that this doesn't need to be unique anymore. Yeah, okay, there we go. Now it's getting cleaned up good. Nice. All right, that has cleaned this up a lot. Okay, so let's have a look at that. Let's see how it's moving. Yeah, okay, so now I can start tuning this a little bit better. So let's bring the speed down to like 15. Also, let me edit these for a little bit more clarity. So this should be export. We'll do export range. Do 0.0 max tau. I don't know. We'll do like 1.0. Ints. I thought there was a way with export range. We can specify the actual values in radians, but should be displayed. Yeah, okay. Radians as degrees. I thought there was a way to do that. Okay. Six? What? 6 degree. What? Doesn't make sense. Oh. That's interesting. I assumed that those were still defined using radians. I guess you actually put the degrees in there. Yeah, okay. Weird. Okay, cool. So we'll do that, and then we'll do that here. We'll just make these 45 instead. Okay, cool. So we'll make the speed, the default speed 15. 90 degrees should be fine. Okay. Okay, that's starting to feel a little bit better. Let's throw some stuff in the map so I can actually see something a little bit better. So we'll do a CSG, we'll do a torus, we'll make some rings I can fly through. I'll make the inner radius like 2, the outer radius like 2.5. Yeah, that works. And we will do that, I think. Okay. Which way is negative Z? There it is. Make sure these are actually facing in front of me to start. And we will delete that sphere. Oh, it would help if I enable collision on these. Where is that? Yeah, there it is. All right, let's see if I can fly through them. Oh, those are... Wow. Oh no. Oops. That would be Godot that I just Alt F4'd. Hopefully that doesn't break anything. Okay, there we go. Oops. That was bound to happen eventually. Okay, so at low speed... Yeah, okay, at low speed I can steer through all of these, no problem. And at high speed, I cannot. Alright. Okay. It feels interesting, but I'm not necessarily sure I would say that's a great control experience yet, but it'll be hard to tell without there being something to shoot at, which means I need to implement the shooting mechanics. I also need to figure out the gimbal lock issue. Let me just do a quick search on that. If there's a way to avoid it. Oh, actually that would probably... Yeah, I think I know what I did wrong. I'm directly setting the Euler or the Euler angles. That's why it's not working. I should have used rotate instead. Rotated. Yeah, okay. And his axis must be a normalized vector if angle is positive. Okay, so I think I want to do vector 3 dot... Is it right? And that returns the new transform. So var 3D equals global transform. Then we'll do the same thing again. This time we'll do vector 3 dot up, and we'll use the yaw. And then we will say new transform dot orthonormalized, and we'll assign the global okay. Let's see if that fixes it. Whoa, no, that broke it. Way worse. Whoa, what did I do? Okay. All right. Let's just try using transform instead of global transform. I don't think that's going to help me. I think that's just fundamentally not the right way to be doing this. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what it's doing, but that is not right. Okay. Well, I thought I was going to be smart there. We are going to ditch that and put it back the way it was, because that was not right. Yeah, okay, there we go. I do need to add, I think part of the issue is I need to add a little bit of slowdown. So whenever you're moving, these should not stop immediately whenever the player isn't pressing them. So we'll say, I don't know, we'll do something like var, or what am I putting it right there? We'll do like var pitch velocity, and we'll do it with yaw as well. Okay, so pitch velocity equals lerp f pitch velocity to pitch speed, and throw a pitch weight. I'll probably move this into movement state as well. So we'll do yaw velocity equals yaw speed equals yaw weight. All right, now pitch velocity times delta, yaw velocity times delta. Okay, so now we will do var pitch weight equals time utils dot frame rate aware lerp, and we'll do like 1.0 delta. We'll do the same thing with yaw. Okay. Okay, well, clearly 1 is way too slow. But that does definitely add a little bit of delay, or a little bit of acceleration and deceleration, which is what I wanted. Okay, yeah, that's feeling a lot more spacey now. There we go. That's feeling a lot more reasonable. Okay, let's try the boost. Okay, well, the boost is almost uncontrollable though. So I probably do need to go back and add a little more control to the boost. Yeah, turning takes an eternity. So unless the maps are really big, that's probably too slow. So default is set at 90. Let's maybe do 60 for these. Let's see how that feels. Yeah, I mean, it's all right. Okay, still feel like I've got a little bit of control. Definitely not as much. Okay, so now the next thing I should probably do is add a little bit of FOV adjustment whenever you're in boost mode. And that will help sell the effect that you're going faster. So on the player camera, I'm going to add a variable for that, and we'll call it, oh, I don't know, we'll do an export. Well, probably not an export. We'll just do a function for this, actually. Set FOV scale. Or set boost FOV. And we'll adjust FOV. Apply boost FOV. We'll call it that. And all I'm going to do is take the That's actually a good point. I don't know how I'm going to do that. Whenever this gets updated, I need to still apply it. So maybe multiply by boost FOV multiplier, maybe. Yeah, we could try that, see if that works. Okay, so boost FOV multiplier is 1.0. And we will do that as a float. And it's really poorly named at the moment, but if boost, then boost equals, I don't know, 1.5, else boost equals 1.0. Okay. Also occurs to me I need to do that first. Okay. Yeah, we'll see if that's right. And then we'll give the boost state a reference to the player camera. And then we'll say whenever we enter it, we'll do boost dot by boost FOV true. And then we'll do the same thing for default state. I'm increasingly thinking that I should not have made these separate states because they're basically the same thing, but okay. Let's see what happens whenever I do that. It crashes. Yeah, that would check out because I didn't actually assign anything. That would help. All right, assign the player cameras. Okay, cool. All right, now let's see if this works. I don't think that did anything. Yeah, that is not changing the FOV. Why is that not changing the FOV? Oh, right, because it doesn't actually update anything right away. Duh. If I called that, all right, cool. Try that again. Whoa, okay, that was way too much. Maybe like 1.1. Do I want the FOV to get bigger or smaller? I'd have that backwards actually. Yeah, that also needs to lerp clearly. Okay, so a couple things here. I actually don't need this anymore because this is just going to get run every process frame anyways, I think. So we'll do that in process. We'll update the field of view. And I do want the delta. We'll just pass that in. And I'm not going to do that there. And we will do var target FOV. Well, ooh. Target FOV multiplier, actually. What we'll do is a boosting equals equals bool. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll set boosting equal to boost, and then boost FOV multiplier will equal to lerp f. We'll do target FOV multiplier. We'll do wait. Okay, so then target FOV multiplier if boosting. Oh, we'll do target FOV multiplier equals 1.0 if boosting equals 0.9. I'm not sure which way right now, whether or not that should go up or down. I can't remember if boosting is normally if you increase the FOV or decrease the FOV to get a speed effect. Can't recall off the top of my head, so we'll just figure it out. And then I'm gonna need a wait for this lerp, so we will do wait float equals time utils dot frame rate aware lerp, and we'll set that to like 2.0 with delta. Okay. All right, and that way the base FOV will still be respected if somebody changes it. It's just the effect, the multiplier, that'll get applied. Okay, let's see if that does anything interesting. I didn't even notice if it changed it that time. Okay, let me make this more dramatic. We'll change that down to 0.5 just to make sure this code's actually doing something. Oh yeah, yep, okay, I noticed it that time. Huh, okay. I'm not sure if that made it feel faster or slower. It's definitely weird though. We'll go the other way. We'll try changing it to like 1.2 and see what that does. Okay, yeah. It's increased the FOV to make you feel faster. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Completely new to game paying money. I want to buy a book to help teach me C#. Any recommendations? Unfortunately, not a lot of recommendations for me personally for C#, since I primarily use GD script. I will say there are a lot of really good resources online. If you prefer to have a physical book, that's fine, but I will say to get into game development, you really don't need to buy anything. So don't feel like you have to. I would say for book recommendations though, I would maybe try probably go to the Wild Jam Discord and maybe ask some people there. They might have some better recommendations than I would be able to come up with. If that doesn't come up with any good options, you might try just the Godot forums in general. I don't think it's been a while since I checked. I don't think Godot has any book recommendations. I'm just gonna quickly double check that, but I don't believe they do. Yeah, okay, I don't think they have any direct book recommendations. Sorry I don't have a better example for you there, for something to go with, but I would say if you're new to game making in general, you probably don't need to rush out and get like in-depth programming books. Your best bet, honestly, starting out with game development is just to get your hands into something and just start playing with it. And don't really worry as much about whether or not what you're coding is correct. A lot of the syntax of the language itself you can kind of pick up from just the examples you look at. You know, like there's resources like Kids Can Code and stuff like that that are good. You know, even if you're not a kid, it's a good resource to start with. You can kind of look at the examples and just feel your way through the syntax without necessarily needing a book. And that's coming from personal experience. For me, I started doing game development way back in, I don't know, what, 2012. And I started with C++, and I didn't start with a book. I just started looking at like online tutorials and looking at example code. So and C++ is a much hairier beast to start with than C#. So all that's to say, like, if you like the book, that's totally fine. If you want to, you know, find something, like I said, check out the the Discord and ask around there. But you absolutely do not need a book to get into game development. And especially with how expensive some of the books can be, it can be a little bit of a barrier. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Now for game development specific books, one I always like to recommend is Game Programming AI by Example. It's an older book and its examples are in C++, but they're fairly simple. But it's a good, it is, you know, I realize I mentioned C++ and AI, so it starts to sound a little complex, but it's just basically a primer on how state machines and navigation maps and things like that work. And it gives you some good ideas of how to structure AI for your game. And it's the good AI, the old AI, not the generative AI that we've got now. So I always highly recommend that one. Why of the, yeah, a lot of that definitely stumped me when I started as well. One of the biggest things I had issue with C++ was the why. So I can definitely relate to that. There's a lot of stuff with the syntax of languages where it's like why is this syntax different than that syntax, and why does the language support the 3 different ways of doing the same thing? And unfortunately it really is just kind of, the language has multiple options a lot of the times, and you just sort of have to find your own preference through trial and error and what works and what doesn't. But yeah, I also get you the note. Literally, there is a wall of books behind me. So I absolutely get you about the paper copies. I've got literally on my desk right now, Designing the User Experience of Game Development Tools. Honestly, I like it just because I only have one monitor in my setup, and it's helpful to just have the book physically on my desk. So yeah, I absolutely get you. I collect a lot of game development books too, so I've got like the Game Programming Gems books and things like that. Just because it's fun to kind of go back, even with the older books, to go back and look at them and just see how differently things used to be done. So definitely get you there. I will say I have a few books from a few different publishers. I really like the books from Charles River Media. I've personally found that those were better than the For Dummies books. I don't know if there's a better C# book, but I would say if it comes down between the two, I personally think that the Charles River Media ones are a little bit better. I think the interesting thing, are you specifically looking for like C# with Godot or with Unity, or just C# in general? Because I was going to say that there's probably are some specific programming books for game development with C#, but I'm willing to bet that most of them are probably geared towards Unity rather than Godot. But if it's just the language in general, any old one would work. Okay, I think I've got the boosting actually feeling pretty good now. I think that adjustment on the FOV actually does feel pretty good. Oh, Unity. Yeah, okay. There's definitely going to be a lot of books for that then. With as many years as Unity's been around, I'm sure there's a lot of good books for it. So I would say then probably the Wild Jam Discord probably isn't going to be as helpful, but there are other Game Jam Discords. So like Bracky's, their Discord might be able to help you out with some books or book recommendations. Yeah, just some of the other jams, I'd say. And really any one of the jam communities that has a help section or a discussion section can probably help you out with finding something that's worth your time. Okay, I think movement on the player is good. I just need to figure out how to fix the gimbal lock issue. I have vague memories of using quaternions back when I used to do a little bit of Unity work. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I wish I could be more help, but unfortunately I did a little bit of C# with Unity years and years ago. Like man, I can't even remember what version of Unity it was. It would have been around like 2011, I think was the last time. maybe 2012, I think is the last time I did anything with Unity. And that was before like the entity component system, or at least their newer version of it. So a lot of the information I knew about Unity is really out of date these days. And I haven't really felt much need to use C# with Godot yet. You can, but since I mostly do a lot of game jams and the C# doesn't work in the web builds, I have just kind of stayed away from it. Yeah, I will say, as an anti-book recommendation, I would recommend staying away from the game programming gems books. That used to be, and the reason I say that, I have all of them, but once you get them, you realize that almost all of the books are just talks from GDC that are freely available online. So, and they charge an exorbitant amount of money for those books, and you're really not, like, you could get the same experience by just finding the person's GDC talk and printing it out, because a lot of times they are free. It's like paying for research papers. So as cool as they are, they're not the most helpful book out there. Their content is basically just recycled, unfortunately. Maybe not when they first came out like 20 years ago, but nowadays they're not the best resource. Okay, I think I'm just going to table the gimbal lock issue. I'm probably going to just do that offline, because I have a feeling that's going to involve me needing to do a lot of reading on quaternions again to remember how to avoid gimbal lock. Because right now there's a funky issue with the controller where if you look straight up, you get locked. Oh wait, what? Now it's not. Oh no, there it is. It like, yeah, it starts shaking whenever you look straight up. And that is a little bit of gimbal lock issue. Okay, so let me check my checklist. What else have we got here? I'm gonna go ahead and call the player controller done, because I think I'm gonna add a note here actually about gimbal lock, and we'll come back to that. And then I'm gonna call the player controller pretty much done. But I do need to add shooting. Okay, so we have asteroids, inventory system. Yeah, I need to get that working. Yeah, so I need the boost component as well. So that's probably the next thing I'm gonna need. And although that's gonna have to hook into the inventory system. Tell you what, I haven't had lunch yet, so I think I'm probably gonna call it now. I'm gonna get some lunch and probably go read up on gimbal lock and how Godot recommends avoiding that. And then I'll probably be back sometime a little bit later in the afternoon. I think I'm going to run off and play a little bit of Resident Evil 9, give my brain a little bit of a rest for a bit. But I appreciate everyone that stopped by to watch me fight through physics interpolation and everything else I've been fighting with here. And if you're working on an entry for the jam yourself, I wish you luck. Let me know what you're making in the comments, and have a good one. I'll be back later.